Imagine creating an entire network of spies that does not exist. Imagine convincing the enemy that your fictional agents are real. Now imagine that your deception is so successful that it changes the outcome of the largest military invasion in history. This is not fiction. This is the true story of Juan Pujol Garcia, the man the British called Garbo. On June 6, 1944, Allied forces landed on the beaches of Normandy. The invasion succeeded partly because Adolf Hitler kept powerful German divisions away from Normandy. He believed the real invasion would come elsewhere. Why did Hitler believe this? Because one man told him so. That man was Garbo, and he was lying. Garbo operated a network of 27 agents across Britain. These agents reported on troop movements, military preparations, and invasion plans. The German intelligence service, the Abwehr, trusted Garbo completely. They paid him generously. They awarded him medals. There was only one problem. None of his agents existed. Garbo invented every single one. How did an ordinary Spanish businessman become the greatest double agent of World War II? How did he create an imaginary spy network so convincing that Nazi Germany never questioned it? Why did the Germans continue believing his lies even after Allied troops landed in France? And how many lives did his deception save? In this video, we will explore the incredible story of Agent Garbo. We will examine his background and motivations. We will reveal how he built his fictional network. We will analyze his role in Operation Fortitude, the massive deception plan that protected D-Day. We will investigate why his deception succeeded so completely. Finally, we will consider his legacy and why his story remained secret for decades. The story of Garbo demonstrates that in war, perception can be as powerful as reality. One man with imagination and courage changed history. His weapon was not a gun. His weapon was a typewriter and a talent for lying. Juan Pujol Garcia was born in Barcelona, Spain, in 1912. He came from a middle-class family. He worked as a hotel manager and poultry farmer. Nothing in his background suggested he would become a master spy. Yet Pujol possessed qualities that would make him extraordinarily effective. He understood human psychology. He had a gift for creating believable stories. Most importantly, he hated fascism. Spain's civil war shaped Pujol's worldview. He witnessed brutality from both fascist and communist forces. He served briefly on both sides, though he supported neither. The experience convinced him that totalitarianism, whether fascist or communist, threatened humanity. When World War II began in 1939, Pujol decided he must act. Pujol approached the British Embassy in Madrid in January 1941. He offered to spy for Britain against Germany. The British rejected him. They thought he seemed unreliable. Pujol then approached the Americans. They also rejected him. Undeterred, Pujol formed an audacious plan. He would spy for Germany first, then approach the British again with proof of his value. In January 1941, Pujol contacted the German embassy in Madrid. He claimed he could travel to Britain and gather intelligence. The Germans, more desperate for intelligence than the British were for volunteers, accepted his offer. They provided him with money, invisible ink, and a cover identity. They instructed him to travel to London and begin reporting. Pujol agreed. Then he went to Lisbon instead. From Lisbon, Portugal, Pujol began sending intelligence reports to his German handlers. He claimed he had reached London and established himself there. In reality, he had never left the Iberian Peninsula. He created his reports using guidebooks, magazines, and newspapers. He studied train schedules and maps. He invented details that sounded authentic. The Germans believed him completely. His reports seemed detailed and valuable. Pujol understood that successful deception requires three elements. First, the lies must be mostly accurate, containing just enough truth to seem credible. Second, the deceiver must seem to share the target's perspective and values. Third, the false information must confirm what the target already believes or wants to believe. Pujol crafted his intelligence carefully. He included real information gleaned from public sources. He presented it as secret intelligence gathered at great personal risk. He demonstrated anti-British sentiment in his reports. Knowing this would appeal to his German handlers, He reported troop movements and military activities that aligned with German expectations. However, Pujol made mistakes. He described British soldiers drinking wine at breakfast. He claimed that Glaswegians would do anything for a liter of wine. In reality, wine was scarce in wartime Britain, and Scots preferred whiskey. He reported fictional convoys leaving Liverpool for Malta, unaware that convoys to Malta departed from Gibraltar. Despite these errors, the Germans remained convinced of his reliability. By late 1941, Pujol contacted the British again. This time he brought proof. He showed them the correspondence with German intelligence. He demonstrated that the Germans trusted him. The British were astonished and intrigued. In April 1942, they smuggled Pujol to Britain. MI5, the British Security Service, took control of his case. The British gave Pujol the codename Garbo. The name honored his skills as an actor. Another Spanish double agent was called Bovril, after a meat extract, because he was worthless. Garbo was different. He was precious. Once in Britain, Garbo worked with MI5 officer Tomas Harris. Harris was a wealthy art dealer who spoke perfect Spanish. The two men formed an extraordinary partnership. Together, they transformed Garbo's operation from a one-man improvisation into a sophisticated deception machine. First, they formalized Garbo's fictional spy network. Garbo had already invented several agents while operating from Lisbon. Agent 1 was supposedly a Portuguese traveling salesman based in Britain. Agent 2 was a Swiss businessman in Bootle. Agent 3 was a Venezuelan student in Glasgow. Now, working with Harris, Garbo expanded this network systematically. Each agent developed a distinct personality, background, and motivation. Agent 4 was a Gibraltarian waiter, sympathetic to Spanish fascism. Agent 5 was a Venezuelan assistant to Agent 3, who proved unreliable. Agent 7 operated in Wales and recruited sub-agents. By 1943, Garbo claimed to control 27 agents and sub-agents throughout Britain. This network existed entirely on paper. Garbo and Harris wrote every message these fictional agents supposedly sent. They created correspondence, suggesting recruitment, payments, personal problems, and ideological motivations. They made the agents seem real by giving them human flaws. Agent 5 was greedy and unreliable. Agent 7 complained constantly. Agent 3 worried about money for his sick wife. The Germans never suspected deception. They paid Garbo substantial sums. The money went to the British Treasury. Garbo claimed to use it to pay his agents. In reality, he paid nobody, because nobody existed. The Germans awarded Garbo the Iron Cross for his intelligence work. They considered him one of their most valuable assets. Garbo sent approximately 500 messages to his German handlers during the war. Each message required careful construction. Harris and Garbo worked to ensure the intelligence seemed valuable, while causing no actual harm. They included accurate information about units, equipment, and locations. However, they sent this information either too late to be useful or mixed with false data that negated its value. The intelligence Garbo provided followed specific principles. First, it contained mostly true information, making it credible. Second, it included false information that was difficult or impossible to verify quickly. Third, the false information supported conclusions that favored Allied plans. Fourth, everything seemed to come from multiple independent sources, reinforcing credibility. For example, Garbo might report that a specific division was training in Scotland. This would be true. He would then report that this division was preparing for an invasion of Norway. This would be false. But the Germans could confirm the division's location, making them more likely to believe the false conclusion about its purpose. By early 1944, Allied planners were preparing Operation Overlord, the invasion of France. The operation required elaborate deception. The Allies needed the Germans to expect invasion somewhere other than Normandy. They needed German forces dispersed across France, Norway, and other locations. Most critically, they needed German reserves kept away from Normandy even after the invasion began. The overall deception plan was called Operation Bodyguard. Within this, Operation Fortitude was designed specifically to deceive the Germans about invasion, timing, and location. Fortitude had two parts. Fortitude North suggested an invasion of Norway. Fortitude South suggested the main invasion would strike the Pas-de-Calais region, not Normandy. Garbo became the most important channel for conveying the Fortitude deceptions. In the months before D-Day, Garbo's network became extremely active. His agents reported seeing preparations for two Phantom Army groups. The 1st United States Army Group, commanded by General George Patton, supposedly prepared to invade Pas-de-Calais. The 4th British Army supposedly prepared to invade Norway. Both armies were fictional. Both were part of Fortitude. Garbo's reports seemed to come from multiple independent sources. Agent 7 in Wales reported seeing American units. Agent 4 in Gibraltar reported naval preparations. Agent 2 in Bootle described shipping movements. The Germans received consistent intelligence from various locations. They had no reason to suspect coordination or deception. The deception required extraordinary attention to detail. Garbo and Harris created a complete fictional order of battle. They specified divisions, regiments, commanders, and equipment. They described training exercises and movement schedules. They ensured every detail supported the false narrative while remaining internally consistent. As D-Day approached, tension increased. If the Germans discovered the deception, Operation Overlord might fail. Thousands of Allied soldiers would die. The war might continue for years. Everything depended on maintaining German belief in Garbo's fictional network. On June 5, 1944, Garbo sent an urgent message. His agents reported unusual activity, suggesting imminent military action. The message seemed to warn of the coming invasion. However, Garbo deliberately timed the message to arrive too late. By the time German intelligence officers decoded it, Allied troops were already boarding landing craft. The Germans could do nothing with the warning. This move was brilliant. The warning proved useless for preventing the invasion. However, it demonstrated that Garbo's network had detected Allied preparations. It enhanced his credibility precisely when that credibility mattered most. The morning of June 6, 1944, brought Allied forces to Normandy beaches. Hitler and his commanders faced a critical decision. Was Normandy the main invasion, or was it a diversion before the real attack? This question would determine whether Germany sent reinforcements to Normandy or kept them elsewhere awaiting another invasion. At 3 in the morning on June 9th, Garbo sent the most important message of his career. The message was long and detailed. It took over 2 hours to transmit. It arrived at German intelligence headquarters around 8 in the morning. The message analyzed the Normandy landings and drew a conclusion. Normandy was not the main invasion. It was a diversion. The real invasion would strike Pas-de-Calais. This message was completely false. There would be no second invasion. Normandy was the only invasion. But Garbo's message sounded convincing. He cited reports from multiple agents. He described troop formations still in England. He noted that Patton's army group had not yet moved. He concluded that the Allies intended to pin German forces in Normandy while launching the decisive blow at Pas-de-Calais. The Germans believed him. Hitler ordered powerful reserve divisions, including the 15th Army, to remain in Pas-de-Calais. These divisions stayed there for weeks. They never reached Normandy. Military historians estimate that Garbo's deception saved thousands of Allied lives during the critical early days of the invasion. But how did Garbo's deception succeed so completely? Why did the Germans never question his network? Why did they continue believing him even after events contradicted his intelligence? To understand this, we must examine 3 theories about the psychology of intelligence and deception. Theory 1. Confirmation bias and German strategic assumptions. This theory argues that Garbo's deception succeeded because it confirmed what German commanders already believed. German military doctrine emphasized that successful invasions require overwhelming force at the point of attack. The Germans knew the Allies had enough forces for a major invasion. They also knew the Allies had additional forces in Britain even after Normandy. German commanders expected the Allies to invade where the Channel crossing was shortest. Pas-de-Calais is the narrowest point of the English Channel. An invasion there would provide the quickest route to Germany. It made strategic sense. Garbo's intelligence confirmed this logical assumption. Furthermore, German intelligence had poor methods for verifying information. The Abwehr relied heavily on spy networks. However, Allied counterintelligence had captured or turned nearly every German agent in Britain. The double-cross system, which controlled these agents, fed the Germans consistent false information. Garbo's reports aligned with what other compromised agents reported. This created an echo chamber of deception. Supporting evidence for this theory includes German military planning documents. These documents show that German commanders believed Pas de Calais was the primary invasion target, even before D-Day. They positioned strong forces there. They built extensive fortifications there. Garbo's intelligence simply reinforced their pre-existing belief. However, this theory has limitations. It does not fully explain why the Germans continued believing Garbo weeks after the invasion. Eventually, the lack of a second invasion should have prompted questions. Yet German commanders kept significant forces away from Normandy until late July. Confirmation bias alone cannot explain such prolonged credulity. Credibility level high. This theory explains the initial success, but not the sustained belief. Theory 2. The credibility Garbo established through accurate intelligence. This theory emphasizes that Garbo's success resulted from his track record. Before D-Day, Garbo provided intelligence that proved accurate. He reported on real military units, actual locations, and genuine activities. When the Germans checked this intelligence, they found it correct. This established his credibility. The Abwehr verification system reinforced this credibility. When Garbo reported that a specific division was in Scotland, German intelligence would attempt verification. They might ask other agents or use aerial reconnaissance. When these sources confirmed Garbo's report, his credibility increased. The Germans did not realize that the other sources were also controlled by Allied intelligence. Garbo also demonstrated qualities that intelligence professionals value. He seemed cautious and professional. He distinguished between confirmed information and speculation. He admitted when his agents could not obtain certain intelligence. This restraint made him seem reliable rather than someone fabricating information to please his handlers. The Germans invested heavily in Garbo's network. They paid him substantial sums. They provided him with sophisticated communication equipment. Having made this investment, they became psychologically committed to believing he was genuine. To admit deception would mean admitting they had been fooled for years. Human nature resists such admissions. Supporting evidence includes German intelligence files captured after the war. These files show that German analysts rated Garbo as their most reliable source. They referred to his reports when making strategic assessments. They awarded him decorations reserved for valuable agents. The files contain no expressions of doubt about his authenticity. However, this theory also has weaknesses. Professional intelligence analysts should remain skeptical, regardless of past successes. The complete absence of suspicion about Garbo seems excessive. Additionally, some of Garbo's early reports from Lisbon contained obvious errors, yet the Germans overlooked these errors rather than investigating further. Credibility level high. This theory explains why the Germans trusted Garbo, though it may not fully explain the complete absence of doubt. Theory 3. The superiority of Allied deception operations and intelligence. This theory proposes that Garbo's success reflected the overall superiority of Allied intelligence and deception operations. The British had broken German codes through the Ultra program. They could read encrypted German communications. This gave them enormous advantages in running double agents. When Garbo sent a message, the British could read the German response before Garbo received it. They knew what questions German intelligence would ask. They knew what information the Germans wanted. They could tailor subsequent messages to address German concerns before those concerns were explicitly stated. The double-cross system coordinated multiple deception channels. Garbo was the most important but not the only controlled agent. The British orchestrated messages from various agents to create a consistent picture. Each agent reported different pieces of information. Together, they formed a coherent false narrative. This coordination was nearly impossible for the Germans to detect. Allied deception operations also benefited from organizational advantages. The British devoted significant resources to deception. They employed experts in psychology, intelligence, communications, and military planning. The German intelligence service, by contrast, suffered from organizational problems, internal rivalries, and resource constraints. Supporting evidence includes the overall success rate of Allied deception operations. Nearly every major Allied operation involved successful deception. The Germans were misled about Sicily, Italy, southern France, and Normandy. This pattern suggests systematic superiority rather than isolated successes. Post-war analysis by military historians confirms that German intelligence was consistently outmaneuvered. Critics of this theory note that it may overstate German incompetence while understating individual achievements. Garbo and Harris demonstrated exceptional skill and creativity. Their success was not simply the result of breaking codes or superior resources. Personal talent mattered. The theory risks diminishing the remarkable achievements of individuals. Credibility level, high. This theory provides important context but should not overshadow individual contributions. Synthesis and current historical consensus. Modern historians generally accept that all three factors contributed to Garbo's success. German confirmation bias made them receptive to deception. Garbo's established credibility made them trust him. Allied intelligence superiority made the deception operationally feasible. These factors reinforced each other. What remains debated is the relative importance of each factor. Some historians emphasize German failures and mistakes. Others emphasize Allied successes and capabilities. Most agree that Garbo's personal qualities, his partnership with Harris, and the broader context of Allied intelligence dominance all mattered. Recent declassified documents continue to provide new insights. Files released in the early 2000s revealed additional details about how the Garbo operation was managed. These documents confirmed that the operation was even more sophisticated than previously understood. They also showed that Allied planners considered Garbo essential to D-Day success. The impact of Garbo's deception on D-Day's outcome is difficult to quantify precisely. Military historians have attempted various assessments. Most conclude that his deception significantly reduced Allied casualties during the crucial first days of the invasion. Keeping German reserves away from Normandy allowed Allied forces to establish their beachhead more securely. General Dwight Eisenhower, Supreme Allied Commander, later stated that the deception operations were crucial to Overlord's success. He specifically mentioned the role of double agents in maintaining German uncertainty. While he did not name Garbo publicly during the war, Eisenhower clearly valued the intelligence contributions. After the war, Garbo disappeared. He had received recognition from both Britain and Germany during the conflict. The Iron Cross from Germany and the Member of the Order of the British Empire from Britain made him one of few people decorated by both sides. However, recognition brought danger. German intelligence officers who survived the war might seek revenge against the man who deceived them so completely. Garbo moved to Venezuela and lived quietly for decades. He worked in business and tried to forget his wartime experiences. The British government maintained his cover story. They allowed people to believe that Garbo had died during the war. This protected him from potential retribution. In 1984, a researcher tracked Garbo down in Caracas. The story of his survival and his wartime achievements became public. By then, most of the German officers who might have threatened him were dead or very old. Garbo gave interviews about his experiences. He published a memoir. He visited Britain and was honored for his service. Garbo died in 1988 at age 76. His obituaries called him the greatest double agent of World War II. Historians generally accept this assessment. No other agent is known to have influenced a military operation as significantly as Garbo influenced D-Day. The lessons of Garbo's story extend beyond World War II. They illuminate principles of deception, intelligence, and human psychology that remain relevant. Successful deception requires understanding the target's perspective and expectations. It requires patience and attention to detail. It requires consistency across multiple channels. Most importantly, it requires courage. Garbo was not a trained spy. He had no formal intelligence training. He received no payment beyond expenses from the British. His motivation was ideological opposition to fascism. He believed he could make a difference. And he was right. One person with determination and creativity changed history. So we have explored the extraordinary story of Garbo, the double agent who deceived Hitler and helped ensure D-Day's success. From his initial approaches to intelligence services through his critical messages in June 1944, Juan Pujol Garcia demonstrated that imagination and courage can be as powerful as armies. Which aspect of Garbo's story do you find most remarkable? Do you think intelligence and deception remain as important in modern warfare? What other World War II intelligence operations would you like to learn about? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this story fascinating, please like this video and share it with others interested in history. Subscribe to this channel for more untold stories from World War II and other historical periods. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.